marked a turning point for Watkins Glen. After raising $3.5 million, the Watkins Glen organization lengthened the course, upgraded the facilities, and improved safety measures. These changes made it one of the premier racing circuits of the world.
I loved the Glen when they extended the course. Then it became really a very technical course because you had really good elevation changes. Then you had a good variety of corners, the downhill braking, and I really, that's the Glen that I really appreciated.
And I think it's safe to say Lewis Hamilton is appreciating his first visit to Watkins Glen after finishing his laps in the Mobil 1 Office Depot Sprint Cup car. He did a donut and spoke with Ralph Shaheen.
All right. Well, Lewis, what did you think of that?
I think we have to swap jobs.
Really? You ready to come race over here at Daytona and Darlington and places like that?
I definitely wouldn't. Yeah, you never know. You never know. I tell you what, I loved it so much. The car is fantastic.
What surprised you the most about it?
Well, I think Tony was always down talking how heavy it is and how little grip you had. And okay, it's different to a Formula 1 car, but it actually handles really well, and you can drift it. You can, you know, the gearbox is beautiful. The power is fantastic. Okay, you don't have the downforce or the same grip as a Formula 1 car, but the tires are great. I think these tires overheated, so yeah, there's not much left of the tires, but it sounds cool. You hear it on TV, and you think, oh, that would be wicked to try it, and I was just smiling the whole time. How much grief are you going to give him since you were quicker than he was? I was? Yeah, oh yeah. Healthy, too. I was enjoying it. I want to go back out. Well, you know, if you're not so much fond of the stock car thing when we're all done here, the way you were doing that burnout there, we have another series over here called the NHRA. You could give a guy by the name of John Force a run for his money, too. That was a pretty good burnout. That's all good. I enjoyed it. I didn't know whether it was actually going to work, but you can make a lot of smoke with this, baby. That's why it's got smoke on the side.
Well, you heard Lewis Hamilton say never. At this point, it's probably worth remembering that back in 2003, when Pablo Montoya tried a stock car, 4 years later, he was a NASCAR regular. Who knows what the future holds for Lewis Hamilton. Time for Tony Stewart to get his dibs in. He'll climb into the Formula 1 McLaren when we return. Listen to the sound of 800+ horsepower revving to 18,000 RPM, and nobody's happier about it than the guy in that Formula 1 McLaren. Two-time NASCAR Sprint Cup champion Tony Stewart living the dream.
Doesn't look like he's going to feel it out. Looks like he's going straight to speed.
Yeah, he was in 7th gear at the top of the S's. Here's the part of the track that he doesn't know well, the boot at Watkins Glen International.
You know, we talked at the top of the show, Tony has a lot of open wheel experience. In fact, he won the Izod IndyCar Series Championship in 1997, but there were no road courses on the schedule then.
That's right. And of course, all of his dirt track experience, including multiple USAC championships, were on oval tracks.
You'll see here, right in the middle of the screen, the transmission number, which ratio is in. 7-speed box. And as we were talking about earlier on, Larry, in the McLaren, Tony will be changing up with his right hand and down with his left hand. You can sometimes just see the driver's hands just playing with the pedal at the back.
Lewis Hamilton looking on from the pit wall, and Tony's dad,
Nelson. Yeah. Hangs out a lot with Tony these days.
So 4th gear, 5th gear. The lights at the top of the dash you see flashing across the top are upshift lights to give the driver an idea of exactly when to change gear. Because these things rev so high, as we were saying before, there's very, very little lag. The things pick up revs incredibly quickly. So the drivers like to have a visual cue as well as when to snatch that next gear.
Steve, I would say as low as these things are to the ground, we talked about in the stock car, the NASCAR car, using the curbing.
Yes.
I'd say you want to stay off that curbing with these things, don't you?
Well, you know, certain tracks you have to use the curbing, Larry, and you have to have the car set up to do that, to be a little bit more compliant over some of the curbs. But the big difference between you guys and us when we're setting the car up is we have that flat bottom with a wooden plank, a composite board underneath the car for legality reasons. And if the drivers get too much curb, and there's so little suspension movement, that it's very easy to turn the thing into a surfboard.
Just hearing the sound of these engines, this engine reverberating off the trees. I've always thought bringing Formula One back to Watkins Glen International would be a race that would need no promotion, because there are multiple generations of U.S. fans out there who would be here in a heartbeat with friends and family to see Formula One back at the Glen.
I guarantee you the grin underneath that helmet right now is gleaming on Tony Stewart's face.
And tit for tat, Tony gets in first hot lap 5 seconds quicker than the 150 that Lewis did in wet conditions. Now let's go to Ralph Shaheen.
All right, we're down here with Lewis, who's listening in on the radio. He just cranked off a 1:45.08. What do you think of that?
I don't know what that means, to be honest.
A minute 45 around the track.
No, but I don't know what times they do.
You ran a 150 when you were in the Cup car.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It's a good start. He looks like he's enjoying himself out there. I just asked him how he's doing. He's not come back to me yet, so I don't know if he knows where the radio button is, but I think it's cool. I think he feels like it sounds like he's getting into it straight away. So.
All right, Lewis, monitoring everything down here on the radio. Tony having some fun out in the car.
No question about that. I'll be interested to hear if Tony complains about the strain on his neck. That's usually what we hear from first-time drivers in Formula One cars.
Yeah, with the strain on Tony's neck, and also, as we heard the guys chatting about earlier on, it's this massive difference in braking. Every new driver, back in when I was racing, any new driver we had in the car, the first thing they said, Larry, it's all about the braking. They get out and say, well, the acceleration is impressive. 2.5 G under acceleration, but it is 5 G loading under braking when those carbon brakes kick in. The loading under braking is absolutely phenomenal.
You know, almost everywhere we go with the Sprint Cup Series cars, where you beat people is from the middle off under acceleration. But quite honestly, at our 2 road courses, which would include Watkins Glen, where you really beat people is under braking. You out-brake them and take the position away, getting in the corner. It's the difference between an oval and a road course is that a lot of drivers, when you make the overtaking move, you have to get on the gearbox of the car ahead of you and then heavy on the brakes, out-brake the opposition into the corner, and then hope you get good traction and power away. But it's the brakes that really can win you the race.
1 minute 42 last time around, an improvement for Smoke as he comes to grips with this strange technology, averaging about 120 miles an hour.
And Bob, if I'm looking at my numbers right, the fastest time ever set by a Formula One car at Watkins Glen back in 1980, a minute 33.29.
So considering the damp racetrack, Tony's doing just fine.
Never run the boot before, and on wet tires, wet weather tires.
Yeah. Now this is a 3-year-old car, and the march of technology in Formula One is such that there's a lot this car doesn't have. Doesn't have the kinetic energy recovery system, or KERS that traps braking energy and gives the driver a power boost, or the drag reduction system, the opening element of the rear wing. He has a lot more wing on this car than current cars do, but no blown diffuser, no blown rear wing, the controversial F-ducts from last year.
If you look closely at the bridge wing that Bob was talking about earlier on, when these guys get up to speed going down the straight, the little wing that's going over the top of the nose, you'll see it start to depress. That's the aerodynamic loading we were talking about earlier on, about the 4,000 pounds. Keep your eye on this little winglet here, up to speed, and you'll start to see it drop towards the center of the nose as the aero load pushes the car into the track.
And there's so many things that a driver can adjust from the cockpit, where on a stock car, Steve, the only thing you can adjust aside from your driving style is the brake bias, front and rear.
No, I was going to ask you that earlier on, Larry. There's no suspension adjustments or anything your guys can do? Now, we are allowed in Formula One to adjust the differentials electronically hydraulically controlled differential, so we can alter the loading through the differential from a cockpit control. Previous years, I mean, back in the mid-90s, 93, we used to be able to adjust the suspension as well through hydraulics, but very limited controls on a Formula One car now. We could do a lot more, but the rule makers won't allow us to do it.
You know who's going to really suffer from this run that Tony Stewart's making in this Formula One car?
Tell me.
Darian Grubb is Sprint Cup Series crew chief when we go back to Watkins Glen with a stock car in 2 months. Car feels like it's not in the racetrack. It's not stuck.
Yeah, I imagine both of these drivers are going to go back to their respective series, and they'll draw a crowd of their colleagues asking, what was it like? We expect Tony to pit this lap.
Now, will he attempt a burnout in this Formula One car?
Your guess is as good as mine. And maybe better.
Box this lap, Tony. Box this lap.
I guess Tony's decided discretion is the better part of valor, or maybe he's just coming in for a new set of tires. That's what I'd like to see. We'll be back in a moment. Well, once again, it appears it's going to be tough to return the seats to their original occupants as Tony Stewart climbs out, having enjoyed a taste of Formula One power and handling. Let's hear how he enjoyed it by going down to Ralph Shaheen with the man himself.
All right, pal. All right, so you just said it should be illegal to have that much fun. Was it that good?
Yeah, poor Darian now. Darian's not going to sleep because I'm going to want it to drive like this all the time. No, that was, man, that's one of the coolest experiences of my life right there.
You know, I know you've driven so many different cars throughout your life. In fact, this week you drove sprint cars and stock cars and modifieds on the dirt, and now this. How good of an experience was this overall for you in your life of racing?
Well, you know, when you grow up as a kid and you start racing go-karts, you never dream that that's the level that you can get to, and you never dream that you even will have an opportunity to do what we just did today. And just so thankful to Lewis and his team. They've made this so easy from the day we got here yesterday, and it just was so much fun. And Lewis's information is spot on. I'd be honored to have him as a teammate.
What surprised you the most about the car?
Everybody told me how good the brakes would be on these, and I knew it would be good. I just didn't realize they were going to be that good. So I would say that, and just it just handles so nice. I mean, it's fun to have downforce once again.
And oh, by the way, he beat you in the Cup car, but you were faster than him overall out there. So you know, you got that little dirt track. You can invite him to that.
I think we both got it by default on a dry track when we both went out, but. Yeah, absolutely. It would be fun. If as much fun as he had in the Cup car, I would love to get him Del Door in a dirt car. I think he would have a blast.
All right, Lewis, what do you think? The invitation's out. Want to go learn how to run a sprint car?
Yeah, I mean, Tony's been fantastic today and to let us come down here today. And I'm so glad that I was able to bring the car back in one piece. And I knew he was anyways. He was going to bring the car back, no problems. But he looked like he had a great time out there. And I'm freaking buzzing inside. I want to go back out again. I think we should get some slick tires and go back out, huh? I know. Yeah?
I think we're going to do that.
Slick tires it is, Bob. And you know, the other thing that I think that was really cool about this whole day, Bob, was the two of them became really good friends. At one point, Lewis took pictures on his phone of Tony getting in the car, and he says, "Don't worry, I'll email them to you."
Well, it's time to start wrapping things up here from Watkins Glen and Seat Swap. But for the record, while we're in break, before Tony climbed out of that Formula One car, Larry McReynolds said the guy I feel most sorry for is
Darian Grubb, especially when they go back to Watkins Glen. But, you know, studying these two drivers' resume, I think no matter what track you carried them to, what race cars you put them in, they would be successful. I've never been to Monaco. Steve, you've probably never been to Martinsville, but I know I always enjoy doing a broadcast with you guys.
Absolutely. Steve?
I never have, Larry, but I tell you what, if you want to invite me, I'll invite you down to Monaco next time I go down there to do a race, that's for sure. I will say, we've had an absolute blast here. We've opened the door to one another. We've had a party. Everybody was complimentary about the equipment. The driving was great. Fabulous day.
No question, it's been great fun, and once again, congratulations to all the fans who sat through the rain to watch their heroes in action. They obviously had a great time, and we hope you did too. Seat Swap with Tony Stewart and Lewis Hamilton. I like their idea. Let's put slicks on and go do it again. Hopefully we will sometime soon. Thanks also to the folks at Mobil 1 for making it happen. For Larry McReynolds, Steve Matchett, and Ralph Shaheen, I'm Bob Varsha. Until we see you again, so long, everyone.